Today I'm going to do things a little bit different. You see, in the past, in the recent past especially, I have preached sermons that have been, for lack of a better word, passionate and or angry about the current condition of our nation's administration. And though I still feel the same as I did before, I think what may be needed at this time in our country is an approach to the scriptures that educates people that have been misinformed about the text. And in so doing, we kind of re-steer the culture in this country. So in other words, instead of verbally attacking Trump today, I want to combat the ideals that led to his election. Is that making sense? All right, good deal. So 2 weeks ago, the values that emerge in this country that are embedded deeply in grotesque evangelicalism, masquerading as our faith, as Christianity, once again steered our administration into the path in leading the charge for the oppression of women in this country. Now, they did this 2 weeks ago when our administration rolled back a mandate that previously allowed women to use their corporate health insurance, the insurance they worked for, to purchase birth control. Until the Obama era, corporations could decide how women used their health insurance because of that corporation's religious beliefs. That means in the past, and I guess now in the present, women could only get access to health insurance that covered birth control if their employer approved of it. And I think that's a little bogus, right? Like, don't you think that if a corporation does that, that maybe they should be hit with like a child support bill or something like that? I mean, really? Like, it's highlighting the fact that we as a nation don't feel that women have the same rights as men, even though we in this room feel that way. As a nation, we obviously don't. And these Christian corporations are continuing a tradition that has been alive in Christianity, not just in America, since the church first began. And that tradition is this: furthering the struggle of women on this planet. And to this day, the writings of Paul in the New Testament especially are used to defend toxic masculinity domineering women in this country. And this, I believe, is the result of a very poor understanding of theology. So allow me, if you could, humor me, and let me explain where these verses are taken out of context. First of all, and I want you to repeat this after me, the Bible. The Bible. Let's try it again. The Bible. The Bible is a library. Not a novel. Not a novel. So we're going to say that one more time. The Bible is a library. Not a novel. And a library, as we know, I found out a couple weeks ago when I actually started to read, has many types of books. And knowing what type of book each book is in the Bible is very, very important. The book of Psalms is music. Genesis is a fictional poem, not a scientific document. It's not meant to be taken literally. Revelation is a Greek play, not a prophecy. Again, not meant to be taken literally. Songs of Solomon was the ancient church's version of 50 Shades of Grey. The Gospels were personal accounts of Jesus' disciples, and the bulk of the New Testament, this is very important because a lot of these verses are taken way out of context. The bulk of the New Testament was letters. And most of these letters were written by a dude named Paul, formerly known as Saul. He actually used to persecute Christians for the religious institution at that time. He later converted and probably wanted to change his name because things were probably awkward in conversation. Like, hi, my name's Saul. I'm the guy who killed her uncle. So he changed it to Paul, hoping that nobody would notice. So he was a foundational leader in the early church after Christ died, and he led different regions of the church. Now back then they didn't have FaceTime. It's not like Paul could pull up his iTablet and carve in a message that Luke would have gotten in another region. So Paul led the church by writing letters, and they responded to his leading by writing letters back. And then Paul responded to issues and drama that was going on by sending them letters. So here's the thing about letters. They aren't one book, okay? Novels are written when someone decides to sit in their office or maybe under a tree and write a story. And many people read the entire Bible as if it was a novel like Lord of the Rings. The assumption that the entire Bible is a novel gets us and has gotten us into a lot of trouble. Kind of like the assumption that country music is actually music. And that assumption gets our country music a lot of trouble. I'm from the South, I can pick on that. I'm used to hearing it all. See, people assume that Paul just sat under a tree, just like anybody else writing a novel, just started writing these letters down for no reason at all. But that is not true. Paul's letters were responding to issues that were going on in different churches at that time. And riddled throughout these letter books are quotes. And these quotes are from the letters that were written to Paul, and Paul references those quotes and then addresses an issue. So the danger is when pastors cherry pick from these letters, they may actually be sending the opposite message that Paul intended to send. You with me? So now in our English translation, it does not highlight these quotes, but in Koine Greek, you can actually follow what's a quote from a previous letter sent to Paul and what he is responding to. And to this day, the verse that I hear most often taken out of context in these letter books are Paul's writings that discuss women in the church. Because when the church reads these verses from the pulpit about women, they read a very small section and they don't finish the passage, and often they just cite the quote that Paul was smashing. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We've got some scriptures here. This first section is the quote. Is it not going to show up there? Technology is fun. I'll read it to you. It says this: I praise you for remembering me in everything and for holding to the traditions just as I passed them on to you. Now remember, this is some random dude talking to Paul.
Here we go.
Oh, we got it. Awesome. But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ. Can I read this in a southern accent? Because I always picture some really misogynistic country guy in a cowboy hat writing this. But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ. And the head of the woman is man. And the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. It is the same as having her head shaved. So why did this letter care so much about hairstyle? You see, at this time, the lowest prostitutes in Roman culture shaved their heads to show people that they were prostitutes in that culture for the temple. And again, a lot of these prostitutes were little kids. They weren't adults. So the prostitute passages in the New Testament, and a lot of times the word homosexual is assigned in the English language to a group of people that Paul is putting down. It's often talking about the system that created pedophilia, and it was legalized in that culture. So if a woman had her head shaved who wasn't a prostitute and she was raped, in that time, Jewish men would blame the woman for false advertising. Does that sound familiar, ladies, at all? Oh, it's the woman's fish. Maybe she shouldn't have dressed that way. Maybe she shouldn't have sent a smiley face to his text. You see, masculinity has not been taking responsibility for their actions or held accountable for quite some time now. Now let me continue reading this passage. For if a woman does not cover her head, she might as well have her hair cut off. But if it is a disgrace for a woman, to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. But woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. Full stop. So upon further research, it turns out that the guy that wrote this letter to Paul was actually an ancient ancestor of Jeff Sessions, by the way. I found that out this week. Now, most people stop right there, right? They think this is what Paul is saying for how women should be treated in the church, but it's not true. Check out what Paul says about toxic masculinity trying to control women immediately after this verse. And again, this is why cherry picking is such a bad idea. Paul says this: "It is for this reason that a woman ought to have authority over her own head, because they are angels," is what one translation says. Because in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For as woman came from man, so also man is born of woman, and everyone or everything comes from God. Paul droppeth the Miceth. This verse that has been used to control women was actually refuted by one of the founders of the early church. You see, like now, toxic masculinity is a problem. And where the early church in Jesus combated these bigots, now the church, led by bigoted ideology, breeds more bigotry. The early church was a movement that fought for equal treatment of women. And the American church is fighting to create and maintain inequality and an unsafe world for women in this nation. Now, I understand that there might be some men in this room that don't believe women suffer. And I'm just going to throw this out there. It might be it's because you're a dude that you don't believe that women suffer in this country, because we have no idea what it's like. So for the past few weeks, I would say 5 to 10 hours of my work week has been having conversations, squashing rumors. And you all are aware of that. I come to church on Sunday, I say, hey, this rumor's going around, the church isn't going to be a Walmart, it's not going to be a Target. You know, I combat these silly rumors all the time. And this past week, I got a phone call from my ex-wife, which is always a joy. And she says, who is this person? They're contacting me, asking me for dirt about you, saying you're selling their beloved church. Now, you all probably don't know this. My ex-wife has never lived in California. She lives in Mississippi. This person tracked down my ex-wife states away from years back, contacted her, and was like, hey, what's the dirt on this guy? How can we get this dude fired? And my ex-wife was actually a little creeped out about this because her social media accounts are locked down like airtight, watertight. So quite a bit of effort went into this. And to be honest, I was angry, and I was creeped out, and I was scared, I was bothered. And I was venting about the whole situation to our assistant intern, Kristen. And I said, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. I don't know if it's harassment. I don't know if it's stalking. I don't know what the issue is. And Kristen actually told me, like, one of the most eye-opening things I've heard in a while. Kristen said, of course it's harassment. Of course it's stalking. You're not used to dealing with it because you're a dude, and that's why you didn't recognize it. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh. You know, this situation that made me very uncomfortable. It made me feel very unsafe and vulnerable. I felt violated. This is what women go through all the time. And then as I began to talk to people in my circle of influence that are females, and the people in my circle of influence that were males, I noticed that the males had no advice for a situation like this. But all of the females could have wrote books on what to do in a situation like this. Toxic masculinity is affecting plenty of people in this country. Dudes, we just don't know because we're not a woman. So maybe, just maybe, we need to shut up a little bit and listen to what the problem in this nation is. And right now, if it wasn't bad enough that women had to deal with stalking, if it wasn't bad enough that women had to deal with harassment, now they're losing equal rights in this country. They're losing access to health care, all because men their leaders and institution want to control them. And that's got to stop. So as we move forward to our communion service that Sarah's going to come up and prepare right now, I would like to say that I hope grace and peace goes with each one of you. And to the ladies, I'd like to say, down with the patriarchy and let the church be on the front lines of tearing it down. And ladies, one of my favorite stories currently, right now, don't let the bastards keep you down. Grace and peace to you.
You know, I think if Jesus were around today, he'd be a sociology major. And he'd be actually digging into these root causes of things that are going wrong. The causes of toxic masculinity, the causes of racism, and actually trying to put together stories of how we dismantle these problems and question authority, challenge empire, challenge these oppressive structures that separate us, keep us from connection, keep us from building a better society. And so when it comes to issues of equity and equal rights and all of these different problems, it was the same battle then as it is today. And as Christians, we are called to go forth and to do the same. If you're not a feminist in this day and age, then honestly, we're not walking the right path. And on the night before he was betrayed, before he was turned over to the empire and challenged, Jesus sat with his fellow disciples, who were each working to build this kingdom of God, this story of equality and healing forth for all of us. He sat at dinner and took the bread, and he said to his disciples, "This is my body. It is broken for you. And in that way, in the ways that we all experience brokenness, he broke the bread and gave it to them. At this time, I ask that at each one of these tables, somebody take the bread, break it. Like our bodies are often broken by oppression. And in this church, and I've mentioned that communion is the most important thing about Christianity to me. And the most important thing about the way that we do communion is that we don't worry about who we're passing the bread to. It doesn't matter if they're a Christian, if they care about these things, if they identify one way or another, we pass the bread. We all share it. And so, if you're willing, if you've experienced the brokenness of this world, we invite you to take communion with us and to share this bread. Take a piece of the bread and dip it into the wine that Jesus next poured, saying, "This is my blood, shed for you. The blood of the new covenant, the new promise for humanity." And he lifted the cup and blessed it and passed it for all the disciples to eat, to drink. And at this time I ask that those at the table pass the wine and dip their pieces. remember that we are all part of this promise, of this struggle together. Amen.
So before we get going to our benediction, I want you to understand that nothing about equity breaks down equality. I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of guys that look a lot like me. They're straight, that are white, they're young even, say, oh, look at this. They're fighting for inequality. They're fighting to put us down. There's a war on straight white men right now. And that's not what this is. See, right now, where we are in culture, we're here. We have access to privilege that many people don't. And the system tilts in our favor. The reason why we say Black Lives Matter in this church, and the reason why we say love is love, and the reason why we say resist, and the reason why we say keep up the fight, ladies, and the reason why we say down with the patriarchy, and the reason why we say down with capitalism and things like that is because there is a system of inequality that I think Jesus would be diametrically opposed to if he were in this country, in this church, on this day. I believe he would say so. But the reason why we talk about it a lot is because the church doesn't believe that. The church isn't aware of that. And that's why this work is so important. It may not be popular, but it is important. So with that being said, I want to invite one of the coolest ladies I've ever worked with to lead us in our benediction. Hannah Hayes, y'all.
Can't hear.
Well, we got to see Hannah. I will lead you. Unfortunately, it's counterproductive here. I wanted a lady to close us out. But may the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever it may send you. May it guide you through the wilderness and protect you through the storms. May it bring you home rejoicing at the wonders it has shown you. And may it bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors.